Imagine Jesus. Picture him in your mind. Did you see a white man with long blonde hair and piercing blue eyes, draped in a flowing robe, like the depictions in churches, movies, and Renaissance paintings? Or did you envision a black man, one whose features matched the reality of the land he walked, ancient Palestine, a region that had never been home to white populations? If you saw a white Jesus, then congratulations. You have just witnessed the greatest propaganda success in history. The white church, Hollywood, and Eurocentric historians have done their job so well that even in a world of information, millions still believe in a false image. But what if you imagined a black Jesus, yet felt a creeping doubt, questioning whether your perception was historically accurate? That means the success of white supremacy goes even deeper, not just controlling what you see, but making you second-guess the truth. However, if you saw a black Jesus with absolute certainty, without a shred of hesitation, then you already know the reality they tried to erase. But why do so many people still believe Jesus was white? What was his true identity, his real appearance, and what do history and actual evidence tell us? In this video, prepare to uncover one of the biggest lies ever told, because the truth about Jesus' identity changes everything. Let's get started. The whitewashing of Jesus Christ has been one of the most powerful tools used to uphold white supremacy, justify colonialism, and control the spiritual consciousness of millions of people. The false image of a European-looking Jesus has been deliberately pushed to maintain racial and social hierarchies, shaping Christianity into a tool for Western dominance rather than a faith of liberation for oppressed people. One of the most recent voices to shake this conversation was Justin Welby, the Archbishop of Canterbury, the head of the Church of England. In a striking moment of admission, he acknowledged that the traditional European image of Jesus is inaccurate and suggested that it's time for Christianity to recognize the many different portrayals of Jesus around the world. In an interview with BBC Radio 4's Today program, Welby stated, "You go into their churches and you don't see a white Jesus. You see a black Jesus, or Chinese Jesus, or a Middle Eastern Jesus, which is, of course, the most accurate." While this was a significant moment in religious history, Welby's statement was still strategically vague. He admitted that the Middle Eastern Jesus is the most accurate, but at the same time, he avoided directly addressing how the white Jesus was used as a weapon of control. Instead of outright condemning centuries of racial manipulation in the church, he carefully framed the conversation as if all portrayals of Jesus were equally valid, despite overwhelming evidence pointing to the truth. That truth is that the historical Jesus was not white, and the portrayal of a European Jesus was a deliberate act of colonial and racial domination. But how did that happen? Well, the transformation of Jesus from a dark-skinned Middle Eastern man to a pale-skinned European figure was not a result of artistic interpretation or cultural diversity. It was a deliberate political and religious strategy that evolved over centuries. This whitewashing of Jesus was not merely about aesthetics. It was a method of control, a psychological weapon used to establish European dominance, and a tool for justifying oppression. From the Roman Empire's manipulation of Christianity to the colonial era and the modern entertainment industry, every stage in history played a role in reshaping the image of Jesus to benefit those in power. In the first 3 centuries after Jesus' crucifixion, his followers, who were primarily Middle Eastern, African, and Jewish, faced intense persecution under Roman rule. However, this changed in the 4th century when Emperor Constantine declared Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. This marked a dramatic shift, transforming Christianity from a faith of the oppressed into an instrument of imperial authority. With this transition, Jesus could no longer be represented as a marginalized Middle Eastern revolutionary. He needed to be reimagined as a divine figure aligned with Roman and European power structures. Roman and Byzantine artists began depicting Jesus with lighter skin and European features, creating a version of Christ that rulers and elites could embrace. This was not a matter of historical accuracy, but of political convenience. If Jesus resembled the people in power, his message could be co-opted to support their rule. As Christianity spread across Europe during the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church further solidified the depiction of a white Jesus. European rulers and religious institutions understood that controlling the image of Jesus meant controlling the faith itself. Church frescoes, stained glass windows, and religious paintings overwhelmingly portrayed Jesus as a European man with light skin, long brown hair, and delicate features. This was not just an artistic choice. It was a calculated move to associate holiness with whiteness and to establish European racial superiority through religion. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos about little heard and untold news stories. Let's continue now. During the Renaissance, this imagery became even more dominant, as artists such as Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Raphael reinforced this Eurocentric vision of Jesus in their masterpieces. Michelangelo's frescoes in the Sistine Chapel, one of the most widely reproduced religious images in history, cemented the idea that divinity was white. And the impacts of this were profound. If Jesus, the Son of God, the most respected and loved figure in Christianity, was depicted as a European, then whiteness itself was elevated to divine status. This religious justification for white superiority would later be used to legitimize colonial expansion, racial hierarchy, and slavery. As European powers launched their conquests of Africa, Asia, and the Americas, they carried with them not just weapons and military forces, but also Christian missionaries. These missionaries, backed by the Church and European governments, imposed a version of Christianity that promoted submission to white rule. The white image of Jesus became central to this strategy, as colonized people were made to worship a figure that looked like their oppressors. This psychological conditioning made slavery and colonial rule more acceptable, reinforcing the idea that white Europeans were not just political masters, but spiritual authorities as well. Even after the abolition of slavery and the fall of colonial empires, the whitewashing of Jesus continued through modern media, particularly through Hollywood. The film industry, controlled by white elites, refused to correct the historical narrative and instead reinforced the European portrayal of Jesus in films, television, and religious media. Some of the most influential Christian films, such as The Ten Commandments of 1956, The Greatest Story Ever Told of 1965, Jesus of Nazareth of 1977, and The Passion of the Christ of 2004, all featured white actors playing Jesus. Hollywood knew the truth but chose to ignore it, ensuring that the image of a white Jesus remained dominant in churches, religious textbooks, and mainstream media. Even in the 21st century, despite overwhelming historical and archaeological evidence to the contrary, most depictions of Jesus in Western media still present him as a light-skinned European figure. The consequences of this false imagery are far-reaching. The Europeanization of Jesus erased the African, Middle Eastern, and Jewish influences on Christianity, replacing them with a Eurocentric narrative that positioned white Christians as the rightful leaders of the faith. This image also psychologically conditioned millions of people, particularly in colonized nations, to associate holiness and divinity with whiteness, while viewing darker skin as lesser. Even today, churches across Africa, Latin America, and Asia are filled with paintings, statues, and stained glass windows depicting a white Jesus, serving as a constant reminder of how colonialism has shaped spiritual beliefs. Interestingly, the truth about Jesus' real appearance is not a mystery. Historical records, archaeological findings, and even biblical descriptions confirm that Jesus was not white. Jesus was born in Nazareth, a small town in ancient Palestine, which is located in the modern-day region of Israel and Palestine. This region was historically populated by Semitic peoples who had dark brown skin, woolly hair, and broad facial features. There was no European presence in first-century Palestine, and the idea of a pale-skinned, blue-eyed Jesus is completely inconsistent with the demographics of the area at that time. The people of ancient Judea were Middle Eastern in appearance, with physical features that reflected the African, Arab, and Semitic populations of the region. Yet, despite these historical realities, European Christian art has continuously depicted Jesus as a white man, an image that has persisted for centuries. Even the Bible itself offers descriptions of Jesus that directly contradict the European portrayals. The Book of Revelation provides one of the clearest descriptions of his physical appearance, stating that his hair was like wool and his feet were like burnished bronze refined in a furnace. This description not only emphasizes the texture of his hair, which matches Afro-textured curls, rather than the flowing straight hair seen in European depictions, but also describes his skin tone as dark brown, similar to bronze that has been heated. This imagery is entirely at odds with the way Jesus has been represented in Western churches, where his likeness is often modeled after European features that bear no resemblance to Middle Eastern or African populations. In addition to biblical descriptions, forensic science and archaeology have also reconstructed a more accurate representation of what Jesus would have looked like. Based on ancient Middle Eastern skulls and anthropological studies, forensic experts have concluded that Jesus likely had short, curly hair, dark brown skin, and broad features. This reconstruction aligns with the physical characteristics of the Semitic people of first-century Judea and completely discredits the Europeanized images that have dominated Christian art. Despite this, Western churches and religious institutions have been slow to acknowledge or accept the evidence, continuing to propagate an image of Jesus that fits a Eurocentric narrative rather than historical accuracy. But the truth cannot be buried forever. The question is no longer whether Jesus was white or black. The overwhelming historical, biblical, and scientific evidence proves that he was not white. The real question is why so many people, particularly within white-majority Christian institutions, still insist on defending the false European image of Jesus. The continued resistance to acknowledging Jesus' real identity exposes the deep-rooted racial bias that has shaped Christianity for centuries. It is time to reject the colonial distortion of Christ's image and reclaim the truth. Jesus was a man of color, a revolutionary figure who stood against oppression, and a symbol of justice for the poor and the marginalized. After knowing all this, what do you think was Jesus' identity? Do you feel Jesus' complexion and ethnicity are important, or should we think beyond that? If yes, isn't it true that then Jesus has to be shown how he was, instead of showing him white? In the comment section right below, share your thoughts on whether Black people's exploitation would have been possible if the world knew from the start that Jesus was Black. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We bring videos on topics that might sound controversial, mysterious, and shocking, but are profound and authentic. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.